Hey guys, so today I'm shooting with my one of my senior. He works at Tasact as a UX designer. So let's get introduction from him. I guess it would be nice to us.
Not much to introduce actually. I'm just Akash Nagaraj. Just graduated as a designer. I have been kind of designing for the last 1.5 years, both digitally and physically. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah. So this is one of my senior. I have been mentioned in the last podcast also. So talking about him, he started a few startups in the college itself, and I and some of my friends were the reason why we started. He was the reason for us, I would say. If you ask me, he had two startups. One is Turtlewig, and few he did in the college, right?
Yeah, I think since I was very young, I've always been fascinated by business, by kind of selling, by creating stuff.
Right.
Possibly because my dad's also a self-made entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And even in movies like all these entrepreneurial fancy Bangalore boy movies and what I always watch. So
yes.
I think it started from early in the school days, right?
Right.
I think it was like 5th grade, I believe, is when I had actually had my first knack at it was basically I took all of my toys, all of my friends' toys, kind of cleaned it up, polished it up, made some marketing campaign for it in the apartment, and all of us sold it for variable prices.
Right.
And that's where I all started with. And I think since then I've always been trying to be a founder, trying to start something has always been what I've.
Okay. So my first primary question was, how did you get into design, right? There are many thoughts when you start pursuing design, because as in Indian societies, many of the parents say ki engineering kar le, do engineering, do doctor and something like that. So how did you stand by yourself and get?
Just like I was saying, right? I've always been a hands-on. I'm going to build this kind of a person. So that naturally caught my parents' eyes, and since both my parents are engineers, they figured engineering would be the way to go. So all of my life I've been, good at science, good at math, good at kind of, science fairs, building things. So actually late into my 12th, I actually believed I would be an engineer. And I was actually preparing to do mechatronics engineering.
Okay.
As my bachelor's.
Oh.
But then I think 14 days before the UC exam, I saw this article about what product designers do, and I got reminded of someone I look up to, right? One of my seniors from school who was pursuing product design.
Oh.
And to give you context, back then nobody knew what design was.
Of course.
Right? Now every company has a design team, has designers, but back then nobody knew what you would be doing after 4 years, and only the companies outside of India actually had a design team or even scheduled designers. At least that's as far as I had heard of. So 14 days before I got to know about UC, and the exam honestly was a very fun experience for me, because it was just so natural, right? Finding patterns, finding shapes. It's so out of the normal. It felt very fun. So I gave that. I got a very good rank. So a lot of the universities actually just got me through without having to give any round. But a couple of the universities had to obviously had their own procedure.
Yes.
But I think I was saying, to be a founder was my in my head, that's always the end goal.
Right.
So I was just looking for a path that would complement that the profile or a portfolio that the founder should have.
Okay.
And being hands-on and doing something in you're building things, you're consciously every day you wake up to have a new problem is something both engineering and design have.
Right.
So I'm not one of those designers who hate math, wasn't good at math, doesn't like science.
Right.
But more design was just more a hands-on way of learning how to build things.
Right.
So that's why I joined design, and that's why I'm a designer today.
So I guess I heard about this. So giving you a introduction, he has worked with DevFolio. He has worked with Turtlewick, and now he's working at Tassac. And of course, he's working on his own startup, that is Tape, which you guys will see in few months. Soon. Yeah. So like my second question was, when you guys, like you, Andy, Andrew, his roommate, you guys were living in that the same bungalow, right? How did you build a startup, like a product startup? Also, you founded, I guess.
Yeah, it was called
Earth, right? And then you came up with one of the startup, I guess, that was selling illustrations online, or like having a subscription of illustrations online, right?
I mean, funny enough, I don't even remember the name of that project we did, but we did.
So he pulled the project in 24 hours, which was something crazy I have heard about, because like everyone was designer in that team. There were 3 people: Abhinav, Akash, and Andrew. So my question about that project was, how did you plan to like execute that project in 24 hours, and that too in college, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because usually when I talk about like things I've built, this one hardly makes the cut. Like I never really talk about it, so it's interesting that we picked up on that note. But yeah, I think the premise for that was. We wanted to do a 24-hour project.
Okay.
Where we wanted to lock ourselves in, right? And that was the premise. Like, we didn't have like a problem, find a solution, and then figure out we'll do it in 24 hours.
Right.
We got the 24 hours down first. And then the next question was, okay, so we need a project both hard to solve in 24 hours, but also possible to solve in 24 hours.
Right.
Like, we can't go and try building an entire app because like, we don't know code. Right?
Of course.
So then it was very much about play to our strengths. And the reason why we chose illustration is, I'm not sure if you guys know Abhinav Menon, but Abhinav Menon is illustration artist. He does a lot of this work, and he also, is a animation dude, right? And the thing with illustrations at that time was, the only way to find illustrations was you'd find a not very identical illustration on another website, and you'd kind of make colors fit in the same thing, but the design system wouldn't be the same.
Yes.
And neither are they modifiable, right? Like you'll get an illustration that's probably as a single flat image, flat lay, and you can't really edit it. You can't change it. You can't move it around, right? And at that time is when we had a problem with this, because when we wanted to consistently use an illustration system, it didn't exist.
Right.
Or the ones that existed was, I think Pablo Stanley had one, and it was very expensive. It was, I mean, for students studying out of Ahmedabad, it was expensive.
Yes.
So then we were like, everybody needs illustrations. We know how to make them. Why don't we just create another library similar to these ones and put it out for free? Like, what are we losing? Right? Worst case scenario, we get to use these illustrations on a daily. So yeah, I think it was a very fun thing. So all the 3 of us went to the local hypermarket, stocked up with food, kept our beds out of the room, and locked ourselves inside a room for 24 hours. And it was one of those projects where like we promised ourselves we'll do 24-hour projects more often. Because we figured that the 24-hour, we not only built the illustration system, first we created a brand, figured out what is the kind of illustrations we want. So we went for like corporate illustrations, because, most corporate people just want a quick solution and don't have the time to create their own illustration set. Neither do they want to invest in that. Right. So a corporate identity, corporate branding, illustrations for these people. And we wanted to go the extra mile, right? We just didn't want to keep this as we have a file on Gumroad, you can download it for paying money. Right. We wanted you to be able to feel what it felt like to customize an illustration. And so we're like, we should make a website for this as well. Right? We should make an entire, it was a full-fledged product and launch it the right way.
Yes.
Which is something we've never done in 24 hours at least. Yes. Usually building a website itself used to take us a couple of weeks, right? So it was a challenge, and like we had 3 very powerful people in the team, including me. I'm just being, but I think we pulled it off, and it was great. Like I think it was an experience. But we never got a chance to do it again because like college caught up, and like, each one had their own ways to go.
Right. So like right now working at this big company, Tassac, right? And of course in Devfolio also.
Yeah, I mean big to an extent, but sure.
Yeah. So like starting that project, how your product design skills were, or like UX design skills were, and now if you look back, what do you like? Of course you'll be calling it shit. right now?
It's bad. Like what we did back then was so I think when you're early in your design, when you're designing, right, you design of what looks cool or what feels cool, and you don't really have a reason why you take any decision.
Right.
The biggest thing I learned when I came to, I mean, talking about TESAC, right? When I came to TESAC was, I mean, I work with great people at TESAC. I have one of my seniors, her name is Yasha Patki, and there's also Naveen Shahji.
Yes.
Now, both of these guys are, you know, I already call them veterans. It's been only 3 years since they're in the industry, but they're like proper veteran. Especially, I mean, Yasha, like that's the thing, right? Yasha and Naveen are very different designers.
Yes.
And like, as a fresher into that team, you have to kind of find a way to understand both their perspectives and kind of satisfy both their needs, right? And on the whole, I wanted to the reason I joined TESAC was it gave me a play where I was not only a designer, but I could take like product level decisions.
Right.
And I was given full freedom day one, right? So more than what was I designing and what did I learn from that, I felt like design is just I reminded myself that design is just an avenue to get a business result.
Right.
So the business result of the product became the reason why we started doing things.
Okay.
So if you were to build even the smallest of the reasons for everything exist, we just don't know it yet, right? So if you like, things I learned can go all the way from why are buttons rounded and why are certain buttons not.
Yes.
Right. Now I think you should have learned this in the first year of university, because like that's what elements and elements of design is all about. But I didn't, right? And I've always been that late bloomer that learned it when it was actually required. Yes. Same thing about color, right? Yes. Color psychology, you're supposed to learn it in your first year, which is what they do. I was just focused on creating that color wheel, which I never got right. But I ended up learning colors later in my life, right? So same thing, right? Like every decision you take in a product has potential to better the product multiple fold. Like even if you just put a border radius on a button, that has immense impact if done right.
Yes.
If done 99 times wrong, you will not feel a change in impact. So it's easy to say that, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But if done right, it brings a whole new level to the designs you produce.
Right.
So that's the biggest learning I've had. And I like that attention to detail, not only in the micro UX of things, but on the macro of how things play out.
Right.
Has been what's been interesting at TESAC. Right. And TESAC is also one of these teams that, is not afraid to take risk. Right.
Yes,
the entire team is young.
Yes.
And we understand we're B2B SaaS. We understand we're, in a very old domain. But we have always seen benefit when we take risk. When we build the most, I wouldn't say half-baked, but experimental of features is when, like, that you're on tiptoes, right?
Yes.
I think that was the biggest learning, right? Be ready to take a risk, but justify every time you take a risk. Right. It should be very calculated and pay attention to the last of the pixels moving around.
Yeah. So like my next thing was you have a product design degree, right? How did you started UX? So like right now all of our audience is the core product design people, and of course they have to continue their core product design journey, but they like some of them have some of them want to dive into UX also, right? And of course I have seen your projects where you built a core product also in your, I guess, third year, something like that, and then your transition began to the UX and the business flow, I might say.
Right. Yeah. So I only learned how to bring together business and design possibly in my second year. Only then did I start adding like go-to-market strategies. What would be the manufacturing of this? What would be the unit economics of the designs I'm producing? Because otherwise it doesn't make sense, right? Like you can design all of hypothetical projects, but it'll never get built because your unit economics calculation was wrong. Right. So I think business was an interesting thing that added to maturity in my design degree. Yes. It is. But yeah, coming back to the question, I think it's simple, right? Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's pretty
Okay.
It's pretty natural of a flow. Like I didn't have to put any thought into it while doing it, I guess.
Okay. So what are your learnings? Maybe basically I might have to ask. Some of the product designers, they start directly on Figma, right? Directly see the screens on the website,
Right.
and they think कि ये बना सकते हैं, or this is an idea we can build off, right?
You're right. Yeah.
So what are your key learnings to turn from product design to UX design? And
I mean, for me, though I was studying an industrial design degree, it was hardly about the industrial aspect. Like for me, it was only about learning design. Right?
Okay.
And the deeper you look into it, I mean, you've probably heard this a million times, but design is design.
Yes.
You can apply it anywhere.
Yes.
Like if you know what are the principles that gets to creating good design or creating good decisions,
right,
that's your only learning in design. And honestly, I believe design school basically teaches you how to learn. That's it, right? Because as a designer, you can be working on a project in college about medtech.
Okay.
Right? But tomorrow you're working at SpaceX and you have no relevance of the field.
Yes.
But you're the only one that will study the field over the next couple of months,
right,
and bring in impact the fastest. You didn't have to study space technology to be able to understand that.
Right.
You didn't have to study medical technology to be able to give a solution in medtech. The only thing you are fully capable of is what is the situation I have, what is the premise.
Yes.
I'm going to learn this accordingly so that I can give solutions to this, or I can better this experience.
Right.
So, I mean, looping it back, right? Like, that's what I think UX is. Like, to me, UX, the first time I heard it, I'm like, wow, user experience. And the first question I had, I still remember it was in one of my hostel rooms. The first question I had was, but who is the user? Right? And now in my head, I've kind of coined that word called, it's not user experience, it's stakeholder experience. Now, let's say this mic, right? Like, it's great for me. And I'm supposedly the user.
Yeah.
But if this mic can be made easy to manufacture, then we're helping the manufacturer.
Yes.
If this is made easy to assemble, disassemble, and package, we're helping post-production or pre-production what's happening.
Right.
So then the guy packing the thing is the user. Then the guy making the thing is the user.
Right.
Now, can I make this in 50? Can I package this in 50% space of what other mics take? Then someone that is selling it at the store can keep 20 mics in a smaller space.
Right.
Now, who's the user there? The store manager. The guy selling it in a POS, a point of sale, right? So then it became a question of who is the user? Right. And when you start thinking of who is the user and why you take decisions, I think that's where you get anywhere, right?
Okay.
Anything can be asked a why for, and there's always a reason.
Okay.
Like I think the other day we were watching a Christopher Nolan movie, and you can't hear the words he says sometimes. Like Carter's words, you can't hear it.
Right.
So now, is that not UX? Obviously, it is UX because there's a viewer.
Yes.
It's an experience, and someone crafted that experience for that user to feel a certain way. But there's no screen. He doesn't have a design degree.
Yes.
There's no sanding of thermocol involved. But it's still UX, right? Like, in my opinion, there's UX to be found at any point of view.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Everything is, in my opinion, can be looked at.
Right. Right.
Why is this done? To benefit a user. So how is that not bettering UX? It is obviously bettering UX.
Right. Right.
And that's how I learn UX. And that's why I don't disassociate UX and design. I think you can't be like you studied industrial design but you don't know UX. And if you really care about UX, UX will apply everywhere.
Right.
Like, let's say you're an industrial designer and you've created a kick-ass product, but you're not able to explain it in better words. Right? You're not able to show, you're not able to bring the value prop to a random stranger.
Yes.
That's when you do documentation.
Yes.
Now, to your documentation, the user is a random stranger.
Right.
The process of making it understandable to him is what UX is. You're making an extremely hard topic easily understandable.
Right.
Now, does that documentation not involve user experience? How can you do it without designing experience? You have to think about the experience that the other person has to go through.
Right. Right.
Right. So I think fundamentally, design exists everywhere, or more like screw design. Design's a new thing.
Yes.
But user and them experiencing something exists everywhere.
Okay.
And as a designer, I believe you just need to know who is the user,
Yes.
what's the experience,
Yes.
how do I better it.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. So in your journey, I have seen one more, not kind of a milestone, something like that, like a bookmark you have in your life. Is like you have followed different designers, like maybe the guy from Lollipop, I guess. Anil Reddy and Don Norman, maybe.
Yeah.
And like lot of designers, right? How did you like place yourself in front of them? Or like, let's take
I mean, I can't talk about Don Norman because I really don't know much about him.
Okay.
Except that he writes books and he's a cool designer.
Okay. He started UX, maybe, like
Possibly. I mean, UX existed. He probably discovered it. but I get your point. But yeah, I think I can talk about Anil Reddy if you want.
Okay, sure.
I think the first time I met Anil Reddy, I'm sure he also remembers this, is at the airport, right? He was a speaker. No, actually, here's how it happened, right? Second year, a couple of my seniors who are going to get internships and get jobs and stuff are praising Lollipop design.
Yes.
The studio, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, wow, what is this cool stuff? And they had this very cool video about their culture, and it's still a cool video, right?
Yes.
Till date. And I watched that and I'm like, wow, this is the work culture that I want to kind of belong in. And I see Anil Reddy in that, and I'm like, he's the CEO. Damn, the guy, that man must be unreachable.
Yes.
Third year, I meet him. Right? Third year, he's reachable now. Right? He basically came to this fest in our college called Ahmedabad Design Week, or I don't know if it was called. I think it was called Ahmedabad Design Week.
Yeah.
And he was a speaker there, and coincidentally, I was a speaker shadow, which meant like I would just kind of assist him. I was a single source of truth. And I assisted him. Very chill person. And then the year after that, we're very tight, and now we're tighter, right? We've just become fellow designers and fellow buddies, I guess.
Yes.
I'd call it that. I don't know what he'll call it, but but that's it, right? But all of that started out with the simple notion that in my second year, I had the thought of this man is unreachable,
right?
But in the third year, when I met him, I didn't create a facade of, oh, this man is unreachable.
Level, right.
I'm not going to get to his level ever. To me, he was a designer who's probably a pioneer of design.
Yes.
He started early before anyone knew anything about design. And he went the distance.
Yes.
And I respect him for it. But he's still a human. He's still a designer. And that's how I looked at him.
Yes.
And funny enough, I think the first time I called him, I thought I screwed up already. The first time I referred to him was, "Hey Anil, how you doing?" And I'm like, shit, should I have said sir? But you get it, right? Subconsciously,
yes,
he was just another man. I respect him till date. He is fabulous.
Yes.
But that's how I look at designers, right?
Right.
Designer doing great. He's a designer too.
Right.
I'm starting off. I have a lot to learn from them, but they're designers too.
Yes.
Right. And that's how I looked at anybody in the process.
Yeah. So one more thing I have seen is you have good connections in the market, in the startup world, I would say. Not as much good connections, but my question was you see the product. Yeah. You learn how the product works, you learn how the team works to build that product, and then you are crazy about that idea ki how did this happen, right? And you maybe ask the team, or you get connected to the team, and you have a lot of questions how this is done, or how I can implement this, or maybe how this is a good experience which I should keep in my mind while doing some designs, right? So I have this question, what is your thinking behind connecting with different designers and CEOs and founders, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I didn't think about it.
Okay.
I didn't consciously say I need to go meet designers tomorrow. I need to go find founders and then talk to them. I'm just fascinated by interesting people.
Yes.
And interesting people always end up being interesting and they're pretty big in the network, right?
Right.
And every time I find someone interesting, I want to go talk to them. Even if they're not going to talk to me, I have an innate urge to go say hi, say, hey, I saw you did this, good job. Or I'm just,
there is nothing lost in like trying, I might say.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, I think I probably didn't even know how to network.
Okay.
And that's why I'm kind of surprised by you saying I have a good network. Because to me, it was just interesting people building interesting things.
Okay.
If you're building interesting things, I want to talk to you about that thing you're building.
Okay.
If you're an interesting person, I want to talk to you about you. And I'm just a curious one. And another thing that kind of helped me was I'm actually talkative, which is probably the reason why I'm the first guest on this. But I'm just actually talkative. I don't differentiate between and a 16-year-old trying to build a science fair project versus a 45-year-old trying to build a startup. Like, to me, both of them are interesting.
Yes.
I don't say, hey, the 16-year-old is not going to give me value. Screw that. Let me go talk to the 45-year-old. He might get me a job. That's not how I think. Like, 16-year-old is important to me too. He's pretty interesting. Let me go talk to him. Right? And it's always been that way. Like, if you look at it, earlier this month, I was in another podcast.
Yes.
But both these podcasts started 2 months back. And both of these guys are my juniors.
Yes.
If I had that big a headweight, I should have probably not talked to them at all.
Yes.
If I was trying to network, if I was trying to get into podcasts, I shouldn't have talked to you folks. I should have talked to folks who had podcasts.
Yes.
So I could have maybe got that podcast.
Right.
But I talked to folks because they're interesting. And they go on to do interesting things. And I somehow become a part of it too, right? That's how things work.
Okay.
Like, why do I know founders? I probably know those founders even before they were founders.
Okay. Right.
And then I get to know them. And then we stick together.
Right.
And they go off to do wonderful things.
Yeah.
And then to the world, it looks like, wow, he knows the founder of that. No, when I knew him, he was walking around in shorts in the college campus.
Yes.
Right? That's how I get to know him, right?
So, like, one more aspect of business I would ask. You're fascinated somehow with Kunal Shah, right? The founder of Cred. Not exactly fascinating, but like all the thoughts he has around.
Again, interesting people, interesting ideas, interesting things.
Okay.
That's pretty much it, right? Okay. Anybody that's building anything interesting, I'm fascinated by that. That's it. Okay. It's no one in particular that I'm fascinated about.
Yes.
Like, I don't know anything about Kunal Shah except a couple of his speeches and how he handles himself and how he talks about work.
Yes.
Now, that part of him I'm fascinated by. Am I fascinated by him as a person? Do I fanboy over him? I'm not sure because I don't know the rest of him. Right? Same thing with Anil Reddy, right? I don't know the rest of him. I'm fascinated because he's an interesting person.
Right.
I do not try and juice that out as an interaction because I don't need one at the moment. And when I need one, I'm sure if I ask, they'll give. But I don't need one. And most of the times, I think it's like, if you think about it wildly, right? You're networking the best when you don't have something to ask in return.
Okay.
When you're just talking to know them. You're not talking to ask them some favor.
Yes.
And most people think of networking only when they need a job.
Yes.
Or only they need internship. And it's very fake because like, hey, cool post. Can I get a job? That's not how it works. So Anil did offer me a job at Lollipop, but or an internship at Lollipop when I was younger. But that came after 7 months of talking to him. And I didn't ask him for an internship. Or even if I did, it wasn't on the day I met him.
Right.
So I foster relationships. Like that was an interesting person to talk to. And it was great that someone who was that experienced in the industry is giving me time.
Okay.
I just wanted to talk to him and learn as much as I could.
Right.
And eventually it did. Same thing with Yasha, right? Yasha, I have known her since she was the only one in my university that got into Microsoft on an internship.
Yeah.
And that's how I got introduced to her on the football field. Where she was just reading a book. And I'm like, hey, interesting person. Kept in touch with her. She asked me what I was doing. I said Turtlewig. She's like, okay. Turtlewig ended. 2 months later, she came up to me. She's like, I've always wanted you at TESAC. Do you mind joining? Right? Like, it's not, I didn't ask for the job.
Exactly.
Like, most people would reach out to a senior when they require a favor. But I've just, take this as advice or whatever, but Build those relationships. You don't know who's going to be what.
Right.
Tomorrow your classmate might be a billionaire. He might ask you for help. But for that, 10 years earlier, you should have talked to him nice.
Yes.
You should have just been there for him. You should have just had a normal bond with him. And I think that's it, right? Like, that's what networking is. You don't network to ask a question. You network to network.
Okay.
You network to just build bonds.
Okay. So, talking about the college times, right? Going back, sorry for that. If it's a pain. So, like in the college times, we have different projects, right?
Yeah.
How did you started thinking on a project? Let's take you had a core product project coming
Right.
up in the class, and you're thinking how the interface or like how I can evaluate, like how I can like upgrade this project to the next level, and maybe come up with things which are helpful in my life later. So let's take you built a project in your second sem,
Yeah.
and which is helpful in your portfolio in after 4 years, right? And after the 4 years gap, you also like after that gap you see that project ki nahi, this is the good project I have done and I should show it in my portfolio. Like, what was the process for that, or like how?
I didn't think of the future when I made any of my projects.
Okay.
I didn't think of I need to put this in my portfolio or I just had a simple thought, right? Like, I think I just wanted to outdo myself in the next module.
Okay.
So if I did A, B, and C, and everybody in my class did A, B, and C for module A, and the next module, all that was required of A, B, was A, B, and C, I wouldn't settle for what was required.
Okay.
I figured out, okay, required is bare minimum. What else can I do to step it up?
Okay. Right.
So
the D part, I guess.
Yes. So, like, if you figure out that, hey, this module, all that it requires is a 3D form.
Okay.
Why can't you render it? Why can't you make it physically? Why can't you make a poster for it? Why can't you envision what it would look like?
Okay.
Why can't you talk about color, material, finish on it?
Okay.
There's always more to do in a project. And the only thing that people, or the reason people don't get to that is because they figure out submission के लिए ये और ये चाहिए, तो मैं उतना कर दूंगा इतना टाइम में.
Okay.
But उतना टाइम में बहुत हो सकता है. But people don't think what is possible in the time.
Right,
They think what is required and figure out how to do it in the time.
I guess the part of choosing your cult also matters there. Like, you had a good group around yourself.
I mean, keep doing the right things, and the people similar to you will stick around and get closer to you.
Yes. And so, like, then the question appears is how the Turtle Week started, how the part of Turtle Week started. Of course, like, you guys had a single project in the second sem or third sem maybe.
Yeah.
And then you were likely
It started off with the logo design, by the way. It started off with a very subpar logo design.
Okay.
So, again, coming back to how Turtle Week started, right? When I was in 10th grade is when I met Gautam Padiyar,
Okay.
who was in 12th,
Oh.
and he was starting like an interesting group of people called KHMD.
Okay.
I was involved. I didn't know anything, bro. I didn't know design. I didn't know engineering. I didn't know anything. But I did what I could, helped him out wherever he could, wherever he needed it. And we pulled off a fantastic event called Interface.
Okay.
Cut to 3 years later, Gautam Padiyar now has a startup. He's the founder now.
Right.
He needs a logo for his company. He hits up one designer who he knows works. Q, me and Andrew in the hostel room, taking that call, getting the logo ready for him.
Right.
He loves the process of how he went for the logo, and he asked me one question. Do you want to join, the name of the company is 23ml?
Oh.
Do you want to join 23ml, or do you want to get paid for this logo? I didn't want the payment. It wasn't important to me. So I said, okay, I'll join the team instead.
Okay.
We joined the team. We worked very hard on that team. We created products, we created apps, learned a lot. But the product we were building was an event space, physical event space product. And cut comes COVID. That doesn't make sense anymore. 5 of us left in the 23ml team. We sit down to figure out what's next. come up with the idea for Turtwig. So where did I meet these folks? Back in 10th grade,
Right.
when they were doing nothing, when they were just mere 12th graders.
Right. So like the same question about football, I might say.
Right.
Coming around to football, you play as a striker, right? And the striker mentality of like not doing things, like if someone tells you ki this won't be happening or like this can't be done, you are the person ki nahi, I'll do it.
I think I've always been like that in life.
Yeah.
It's
And
not
like,
the football that got it in me.
Right. I think the sport has given you many qualities which has like a main role in your life, I would say.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like pulling out business is also you need to have that confidence ki if someone says this can't be done, you are the person. You won't be saying in him on the face ki this can be done, but you'll be the person ki 20 days later, yeah, this is done.
Yeah. I mean, that's one example, right?
Yeah.
The biggest example I've seen that football has taught me in like professional career per se is the sense of team.
Okay.
Right. What is it to be a good team? Is a very intangible subject.
Right.
You can't really define it. But like a business needs a team.
Okay.
And the stronger your team, the better you guys play.
Right.
That's all it is.
Like I've seen in Turtlewick, I've seen in Dassac, like you gift your teammates, right? And you give them merchandise. Like right now he's the product manager, I would say, and he's handling a good team. I am under him. I'm working under him. So like the context or like the confidence you have when you built a feature, when you explain it to your teammates, I've seen that it is pretty much clear ki even though I'm not having that confidence to achieve it, I can be the person ki I'll just follow him. I'll just see where he needs the help. I'll put my efforts there, and the feature is there in extended.
Yeah, like I can't build anything by myself because I don't know how to code.
Okay.
And even if I knew how to code, I'd probably lag somewhere else.
Right.
And it's always better to get it done as a team. So, and the only thing that I bring to a table when I'm leading a team or I'm leading a squad or even in football when I'm leading something is confidence to get it done.
Okay.
And like the culture or that work ethic, you set on the table. Okay. You say, hey, this is what momentum looks like, and other people use your momentum.
So you plan it first.
Yeah, and when I'm in a squad, I think I read this somewhere once when I was younger, and I don't remember where, but when you're the head of a team, you work for the team. The team doesn't work for you.
Exactly.
Let's say you're designing it, right? And you need a cup of coffee. I can't be like, hey, I'm the head of the squad. You should be getting me coffee. You're working, which I probably can't do that work. How do I enable you? You need coffee? Great, you need coffee. You need to figure out some copy? I'll take care of that copy. You do your work best. And I think the biggest CEOs in the world, the biggest, best founders in the world are literally just good at enabling people.
Oh, yeah.
That's all you have to do. You just keep enabling the right folks around you to be better than what they think they can be.
Okay.
And you're doing a good job. And the team feels great.
Right.
Because the team feels like, hey, I didn't even know I could do this, but I achieved it.
Right.
And the team's doing good. And I read about Hooked, right? Hooked's a book. And you read about how variable reward plays a big role in motivation.
Okay.
Exactly why I gift merchandise whenever I feel like doing it. I learned it as a UX lesson.
Yes.
I applied it to a team. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it's stupid. Maybe it's unit economics is dumb. I'll only realize when I do it.
Yes.
Right. But like I want to do it. I do it. I like designing merchandise once in a while because I get bored of screens. So like I design merchandise, send it out to my team. Like what's wrong with that? Yeah.
Okay. So like one crazy night, I might say, we emailed Netflix. And I shouldn't be talking this on the podcast because it is the illegal stuff we did. So
to some extent.
Yeah. So how like when I pitched you the idea about Netflix, right? You might have said me ki, yeah, what dumb fuck idea are you giving me? They can't be like having this onto their platform, or like they can't be upgrading this feature onto their platform. But you are the person who told me ki, oh, great idea. Let's write an email and let's like put in me CC and
I think you'll never know if it's a great idea or not until you tell it to the right person.
Okay.
Or you execute it.
Right.
Like, you can only have ideas. The greatness comes because it's executed well.
Okay.
There's nothing called a great idea. Because if you have a great idea, it might be great to you, but it might not have sense in that business.
Okay.
What we had was an idea that day. And when we emailed that person in Netflix, we didn't get a response.
Yes,
but if we did get a response, if they acted on it, then it is a great idea.
Yes.
But we had an idea, who am I to judge if it's great or not?
Yes.
Right? Like, we have ideas, we send it out. Send it out to the world, put it out in the world. Every startup is that, right? Like, you have one fantastic idea till it doesn't make sense anymore. So, you have that fantastic idea, you work on it. 1 out of 1,000,000 times that idea might actually be fantastic.
Okay.
And you become a very successful startup.
Okay. So, coming back to tape.
Yeah.
You asked me about I wanted to ask you how you started the journey about tape, right? Because in Turtle Week, not it was a bad time for you. I think it was a good learning for you after that startup, Turtle Week. But I want to think how you took the risk of, like, not the risk, I would say, again, the confidence inside you popped out, ki, let's have a startup called Tape. And like introduction to Tape, it's a video software or like...
You guys will see.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
We're still very early stage, so we're trying to figure out what we actually do. And giving any kind of explanation now will not make sense 1 week later.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I think we should wait for things to settle before you can see what Tape is. But yeah, confidence for Tape is no confidence, bro. Like, we were working. Me and Andy were living together.
Yes.
And we were working day in, day out.
Yes.
For 6 months. And
you had your full-time job.
Yeah, all of us had. Basically, everybody had a full-time job and we were just working. And we used to see each other every day, get in and get out of work, go to the gym, eat. And one day, me and Andy were sitting down and we're like, yo, this is boring. We need to build a startup. And we're like, exactly, let's just build a startup. And that's how Tape started.
Okay.
It's always been like that. Like, life's getting monotonous. Let's do something cool.
Right.
Started Earth.
So I guess I've heard about the story also, that about your first logo design, you sold it to your faculty, I guess for 300 rupees or like...
Yeah, something around that price. I think 700 was the price.
Okay.
300 each. Me and Andy got 300 each.
At that time, you have seen people earning a lot, right? Like, let's take someone will be charging 10,000 for that logo. But how you came up with that price?
Honestly, we thought we weren't good enough.
Okay. But still it was, I think it's hard for that time frame in the college that 300 ka ye, what it will change my life, right?
Again, it didn't have to.
Okay.
I didn't expect that 1 gig to make me Christo.
Okay.
It was just a small logo design for someone that I knew. Another person had referred me to it.
Okay.
And
how did you celebrate the...
I think you know this, but so we got $700 as a pay. It was actually for $3,000 to be billed. She didn't like the logo.
Okay.
So she paid us only 700 and said, let's drop it.
Oh.
And we took 700, split it between me and Andrew. 350. And we just went to, for all of you that are in UID, Brahmani. For all of you that don't know UID, it's just a small shack outside that sells pav bhaji and vada pav. We just went there and blew it. Blew $350 and celebrated our win and walked back home. Yeah, that's what we did.
Okay, but now when you are having your full-time job and you are celebrating, how the picture looks, right? Now you have tons of responsibilities on your plate. You complete the responsibilities and the celebration, I guess, might have changed.
The celebration is we choose to start a extremely high-risk company called Tape.
Oh.
That's how new celebration is.
Okay.
It's not celebration, it's more like confidence. Like, you can do what you want and not have to... I mean, obviously there are consequences, but it doesn't itch you as much.
Okay.
Like you take risk, you face it. Now you can take bigger risk. That's all life is about.
Right.
I think that's pretty much it. Like we took risk earlier in our lives, did smaller things, which gave us confidence that we can take risk. We can probably do it. And this is the bigger risk, probably the biggest I've taken in life. We'll take this one, and then we'll see.
And I guess I've seen you many a time, like you interact with the juniors, right? You show them the path, or like you teach them how things can be done. But I think there is a learning for you also. I think I guess like there is something hidden behind it, or like
I'm going to correct you before that. I don't show them the path. I don't teach them anything. I just find them interesting, so I interact with them.
Okay, but there is something hidden behind that. I think like it's the values, or like it's the thinking your younger generation has, and like it helps you.
Absolutely. I think I always want to be involved with younger people because obviously more interesting ideas, always in trend, and that kind of keeps me going. And I think that's why we're here. That's why we're talking to younger people. But yeah, I think it's always been, when I was in college, there were only like people 10 years in the industry that would come talk to some students.
Yes.
And I'm like, bro, but that's too far for me to think what the next step would look like.
Right.
Why is nobody that is immediately above me talking to me?
Yes.
And there's no avenue for that either.
Yes, definitely.
So I think that's when I started talking to folks right under me. I've always had this notion of there needs to be a bridge. There needs to be someone that can connect what Anil Reddy is saying, because he's that experienced, to someone, a first year designer.
Yes.
And you need to kind of like bring them in the same room and have a common conversation. And that starts with me talking to people below me. And continuously, if I keep doing that, maybe 20 years down the line, when I'm a 20-year experienced designer, I'm still talking to the first year of the university.
Right.
First year student in university. Right. That is going to be immensely valuable to me.
Yes.
I don't know who else it's going to be valuable to.
Yes. So cutting it short, guys, I think this is it for today. I guess we'll have one more round with you, and one more senior joining with us. So I think let's keep us watching and like give us feedback how things can be done more, like how we can improve it. And that's it for today, I guess. And
I had my fun. Thanks.
Thank you, Akash, for joining us, and thank you for giving your time.
Thank you for inviting me, I guess.
Okay, so let's see him soon on our next podcast. Thank you, guys.
See you, folks.